Commander Eric Russell stared at the message on his screen and felt his mouth go dry. After decades of searching the stars for alien life, humanity had finally made contact. But not in the way anyone had hoped. "Is this verified?" Eric asked, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. Lieutenant Diane Powell nodded. "Signal origin is approximately 2.3 light-years away and closing. Translation algorithms are 98% confident in the meaning. The message was simple. Your world has been noted. Prepare for inspection and categorization." Eric read between the lines. In diplomatic terms, it was the equivalent of a predator informing its prey that dinner would be served soon. He pulled up the visual feed from the long-range telescopes. The approaching ships resembled massive arrowheads, their dark hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light. "Get me Admiral Miller," he ordered. Within minutes, the stern face of Susan Miller filled his screen. At 62, she had led Earth's defense fleet through its formation years, though never in actual combat. No one had fought actual battles in space. Until now. "You've seen the transmission?" Eric asked. "I have," Miller replied. "And the preliminary scans of their vessels. We're outmatched, Commander." "With respect, Admiral, we don't know that yet. We know nothing about them." Miller's expression softened slightly. "That's why I'm putting you in charge of first contact defense. Your background in xenobiology might give us an edge." Eric nodded. Before joining the military, he had been a leading researcher in theoretical alien biology. "I'll need all resources directed to gathering information. Anything we can learn might help." Over the next 72 hours, Eric slept little as data poured in from observatories across the solar system. The approaching fleet consisted of 7 massive vessels and dozens of smaller ones. Their technology was unlike anything humans had developed, using principles that seemed to bend the laws of physics. More disturbing were the glimpses of the aliens themselves. The few unclear images showed massive reptilian creatures with natural armor plating and powerful limbs ending in what appeared to be venomous claws. "They're apex predators," Eric explained in the emergency council meeting. Representatives from all Earth nations watched with grim faces. "Everything about their biology suggests they evolved as hunters, not builders. The technology almost seems added on, rather than developed naturally through their evolution." "What does that tell us?" asked the representative from the African Union. "It tells us they're conquerors," Admiral Miller said flatly. "They've likely taken technology from other species they've encountered." "And defeated," someone added quietly. Eric brought up his analysis. "There's something else. Their ships, their weapons, even their communication style, it's all direct. Overwhelming force. No subtlety, no deception. They've never needed it." Council President Maya Garcia leaned forward. "Are you suggesting they have a weakness?" "Not exactly a weakness," Eric replied. "More like a blind spot. They've evolved as the top predators, never needing to hide or adapt. Humans evolved differently. We were persistence hunters. We survived through endurance, cooperation, tool use, and adaptability." Admiral Miller studied the tactical display. "So while they're stronger and have better technology, we might have an advantage in strategy?" "It's a theory," Eric admitted, "but it might be all we have." As the alien fleet entered the outer solar system, humanity prepared. The plan was simple but dangerous. Instead of concentrating their forces, Earth's ships would separate into smaller, mobile groups. Attack, retreat, regroup, attack again. Never present a single target. The day the Vargoth, as they called themselves in a second, more detailed message, entered Mars orbit, Eric stood on the bridge of the EDF Challenger, Earth's newest defensive vessel. "They're broadcasting," Lieutenant Powell reported. The screen filled with the image of a massive reptilian creature. Its scales gleamed like burnished copper and vertical pupils narrowed in what Eric recognized as amusement, rather than aggression. "I am Hunt Commander Drekthar of the Vargoth Dominion," the creature announced, its words translated by the computer. "Your species has been assessed as Class 3, non-threatening intelligent life. You will submit representatives for study and provide resources as required. Resistance is The alien made a sound that the translator couldn't process. Something. Between a hiss and a laugh, Eric stepped forward. "This is Commander Eric Russell of Earth. We acknowledge your message, but not your authority. Earth and its people are not available for study or resource extraction." The alien's head tilted, its movements surprisingly bird-like despite its reptilian appearance. "Interesting. Your species appears to lack both natural weapons and sufficient artificial ones, yet you speak as equals." Its massive jaw opened in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of serrated teeth. "This will make the hunt more satisfying." The transmission cut off. Almost immediately, the smaller Vargoth vessels began moving toward Earth. "They're launching," Eric reported to Admiral Miller. "Exactly as expected. Direct approach. No attempt at deception. Implement Operation Scattered Hunter," Miller ordered. Across the solar system, Earth's defense fleet split into pre-planned groups. Captain Alan Hayes led his squadron behind Jupiter's moons. Lieutenant Grace Taylor positioned her vessels in Mars orbit, appearing vulnerable and isolated. The Vargoth ships accelerated toward Taylor's group, weapon systems charging. "They've taken the bait," Eric reported. "Hayes' team is in position." The trap was set. Taylor's ships weren't defenseless. They were bait. When the Vargoth committed to the attack, Hayes' squadron emerged from hiding with experimental electromagnetic pulse weapons designed to target the aliens' neural command systems. The first shots were fired not by the powerful Vargoth weapons, but by the supposedly primitive human vessels. The pulses hit the lead Vargoth ships, causing them to drift off course as their systems temporarily failed. "Direct hits," Hayes reported, his voice tense but controlled. Their shields weren't configured to block that specific frequency. For possibly the first time in their species' history, the Vargoth experienced tactical defeat. 3 of their advanced ships floated powerless as Taylor's vessels retreated to a safe distance. On the main Vargoth vessel, Drekthar raged. The small, soft creatures had tricked him, had hidden their true capabilities, had fought not like prey, but like hunters. "Full assault," he ordered. "No more games." As the remaining Vargoth ships regrouped for a more determined attack, Eric watched the tactical display with a mixture of hope and dread. The first exchange had gone better than expected, but the real battle was just beginning. "They'll adapt," he warned Miller. "But so will we." The Admiral nodded. For the first time in their history, they're fighting an enemy that thinks. Let's show them what that means. As the Vargoth fleet approached Earth, humanity prepared for a fight unlike any in their history. Not just for survival, but to prove that in the galaxy's great game of predator and prey, humans would not be the hunted. Drekthar paced the command deck of his flagship, his claws clicking against the metal floor. The defeat of his advanced ships was impossible, yet it had happened. These humans, these soft creatures without natural weapons, had somehow outmaneuvered the galaxy's most feared hunters. "Report," he growled at his second-in-command. 3 escort vessels disabled by unknown energy pulse," replied Subcommander Vaska. "Systems restored after 17 minutes of failure. No casualties, but—" Vaska hesitated. "Speak," Drekthar ordered. "The humans did not destroy our disabled ships. They had the opportunity but withdrew instead." Drekthar's scaled brow furrowed. This made no sense. In the thousands of worlds the Vargoth had conquered, no species had ever shown such restraint. Victory meant elimination of the enemy. What game were these humans playing? "They are testing us," he decided. "Prepare for planetary assault. We will meet these creatures on their own ground and show them what true predators are capable of." On Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Eric Russell studied the Vargoth fleet movements with growing concern. "They're spreading out," he told Admiral Miller. "Preparing for a multi-point landing strategy." Miller nodded grimly. "As expected. Hayes' ambush bought us time. But they were always going to bring the fight to Earth." The room fell silent as everyone considered what ground combat against the Vargoth would mean. The aliens were twice the size of humans, naturally armored and equipped with lethal claws and teeth. In close quarters, no human would stand a chance in direct combat. "Major Kelly," Miller addressed a stocky, gray-haired man at the tactical station. "Is your team ready?" Major Peter Kelly nodded. "As ready as we can be, Admiral. North American Command Center is prepped with the sonic weapons Dr. Rodriguez designed. If the scans of Vargoth physiology are accurate, they should be effective." Eric turned to the scientist in question. Chief Engineer Lisa Rodriguez had barely slept in 3 days, working to develop weapons based on the limited information they had about Vargoth biology. "The sonics will work," Lisa said with quiet confidence. "Their auditory systems are highly developed for hunting. What gives them an advantage in detecting prey also makes them vulnerable to targeted sound frequencies." "And the other preparations?" Miller asked. "In place," Kelly confirmed. "We're not fighting them strength against strength. That would be suicide." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent alert. Lieutenant Powell's voice came over the comm system. "Multiple Vargoth landing craft detected. Impact in 28 minutes, at 12 separate locations." Miller stood. "This is it, people. Remember, we're not fighting like prey, we're fighting like humans." As the Vargoth landing craft entered Earth's atmosphere, defense systems around the globe activated. Not the obvious missile batteries and anti-aircraft guns the aliens would expect, but hidden improvised weapons that no predator would anticipate from their prey. The first landing occurred near Chicago, now evacuated except for military personnel. Sergeant Jack Morrison watched from his concealed position as the Vargoth craft touched down in Grant Park. The door opened, and massive reptilian figures emerged, weapons ready. Jack tapped his comm unit. "Targets in sight, proceeding with test. Protocol." His small squad had simple orders. Observe Vargoth behavior and test different engagement tactics. Not to win, just to learn. The Vargoth moved with frightening speed despite their size, spreading out with practiced efficiency. Jack gave the signal, and a small drone buzzed into view, drawing the aliens' attention. One of the Vargoth fired, destroying it instantly. "Phase 1, Jack whispered. "They shoot at movement." The next test involved a soldier breaking cover and running away from the aliens. The response was immediate. 3 Vargoth abandoned their formation to chase the fleeing human, exactly as natural predators would. Phase 2 confirmed they chase runners. The third test was the riskiest. Private Sam Wilson stepped out into the open, facing the Vargoth directly. He stood his ground, weapon lowered. The aliens hesitated. This wasn't prey behavior. The momentary confusion lasted only seconds, but it was enough to confirm Jack's theory. Phase 3 confirmed. They're thrown off by prey that doesn't act like prey. Jack relayed the findings to command as his team retreated. Similar tests across the globe were yielding the same results. The Vargoth, for all their advanced technology and physical superiority, were still bound by their evolutionary instincts, and those instincts could be exploited. At the North American Command Center, Major Kelly prepared his defense. Unlike conventional military installations with obvious fortifications, Kelly had redesigned the approach to the base to confuse predator instincts, false openings, unexpected barriers, and terrain that forced the attackers to bunch up rather than spread out. When the Vargoth assault team arrived, they found not a heavily defended fortress, but what appeared to be a poorly protected facility. The lead Vargoth, sensing easy prey, charged forward, directly into the range of Lisa Rodriguez's sonic weapons. The effect was immediate and devastating. The high-frequency sound waves, inaudible to human ears, caused the Vargoth to writhe in pain, dropping their weapons as they tried to cover their hearing organs. "Fire," Kelly ordered, and his soldiers emerged from hidden positions, targeting the disoriented aliens with weapons designed to penetrate their natural armor at close range. The Vargoth, expecting to be the hunters, suddenly found themselves the hunted. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Beijing, Chinese forces used underground tunnel networks to appear and disappear, striking the confused aliens from unexpected angles. In Nairobi, Kenyan special forces utilized environmental traps that even the Vargoth's enhanced senses couldn't detect until too late. Aboard his orbiting flagship, Drekthar received increasingly disturbing reports. His ground forces were taking unprecedented casualties against an enemy that should have been easily overwhelmed. "This makes no sense," he snarled. They are physically inferior in every way. Yet they fight differently than any species we have encountered, Vaska observed. They do not flee as prey should. They do not charge as predators would. They adapt. Drekthar slammed his clawed hand against the command console. Order all ground forces to return to orbit. We must reassess our approach. As the Vargoth retreat began, Eric Russell received the reports with cautious optimism. The ground engagement had been costly, hundreds of human lives lost, but the aliens had withdrawn. They're learning, he warned Admiral Miller. Next time they won't underestimate us. And we'll be ready, Miller replied. Dr. Wright thinks she's close to decoding their main communication system. If she succeeds, we may gain a critical advantage. Eric's nodded, but his expression remained troubled. We've won the first exchanges, but they'll adapt their tactics. And we still don't know how many ships they have beyond our solar system. One battle at a time, Commander, Miller said firmly. Today, humanity showed the galaxy's apex predators that Earth isn't their prey. Tomorrow, we show them we're hunters too. As night fell over a planet still bracing for war, the stars seemed different to those watching them. No longer points of wonder and exploration, but potential sources of danger. Yet with that fear came a new resolve. Humans had faced the galaxy's greatest predators and survived the first encounter. Whatever came next, they would face it together, not as the hunted, but as hunters in their own right. Dr. Olivia Wright had not left the communications lab in 3 days. Empty coffee cups surrounded her workstation as she stared at the screen, her eyes red from lack of sleep. The Vargoth communication signals were unlike anything she had ever studied, yet there was a pattern, a logic she was beginning to grasp. I think I've got it, she said, her voice hoarse from disuse. Her assistant looked up from his own terminal. The encryption? Not just that, their entire communication network. Olivia pointed to her screen where alien symbols flowed across in complex patterns. They don't just send messages, they send commands, automated instructions to their ships and troops. Commander Eric Russell was called immediately. He arrived at the lab within minutes, Admiral Miller joining by secure video link. Show me, Eric said without preamble. Olivia pulled up her findings. The Vargoth operate on a hierarchical system more rigid than anything we use. Every command flows from the top down, with almost no initiative permitted at lower levels. That fits with their predator psychology, Eric noted. In pack hunters, only the alpha makes decisions. Exactly. But here's the critical part. Olivia highlighted a section of code. They're calling for reinforcements, a second fleet, at least twice, the size of the first. Admiral Miller's expression darkened on the video screen. Time frame? Based on the signal strength and light speed limitations, I'd say we have 3 weeks before they arrive. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth had barely survived the first assault. A force twice that size would be devastating. There's something else, Olivia added. I've found what might be a weakness in their network. If we could introduce a specific signal pattern into their command channel, we might disrupt their chain of command temporarily. Eric leaned forward. Temporarily is better than nothing. Keep working on it, Doctor. As Eric left the lab, he was met by Colonel Ben Carter, head of Earth's newly formed Space Strike Force. Carter was a tall, lean man with a perpetual look of calculation in his eyes. I heard about the reinforcements, Carter said, falling into step beside Eric. We can't win against those numbers, not with our current approach. What are you suggesting? Carter stopped walking, making Eric turn to face him. We need to take the fight to them. Right now they're retreating, regrouping. They think they have time. We need to hit them before the reinforcements arrive. With what? Eric asked. Their technology is still far beyond ours. Not as far as it was a week ago. Carter led Eric to a hangar where engineers and scientists swarmed over captured Vargoth equipment. We've been reverse engineering their tech. The basic principles aren't impossible to understand, just different from our approach. Eric watched as a human pilot climbed into what appeared to be a modified Vargoth scout ship. You got one working? Carter nodded. 3 so far. Enough for a small strike team. I've selected Captain Ryan Martinez to lead the mission. Captain Martinez approached at the mention of his name. He was younger than Eric expected, perhaps in his early 30s, with a calm demeanor that contrasted with the intensity in his dark eyes. "Commander," Martinez greeted Eric. "We're ready for this. My team is trained in the simulators non-stop." "Simulators based on extremely limited data," Eric pointed out. "Better than no preparation at all," Martinez replied. "And we have surprise on our side. The Vargoth don't expect us to come to them." The plan, when presented to Admiral Miller and the World Defense Council, was controversial. Sending a small team in barely understood alien vessels seemed like a suicide mission. But as satellite imagery showed the Vargoth fleet regrouping at the edge of the solar system, the alternatives seemed equally grim. "What's the objective?" President Garcia asked after Carter laid out the mission parameters. "Two goals," Carter replied. "First, gather intelligence on their fleet strength and positions. Second, if possible, plant Dr. Wright's disruption signal into their command network." Miller studied the mission outline. "And if they're captured?" The unspoken question hung in the air. "What would the Vargoth do to human prisoners?" "We won't be," Martinez said quietly. "One way or another." 3 days later, the stolen Vargoth vessels left Earth under cover of a meteor shower, their modified engines disguised to match Vargoth energy signatures. Captain Martinez led the 3-ship team, with 12 crew members total, all volunteers, who understood the risks. On the bridge of his small craft, Martinez watched Earth shrink behind them. Stealth systems engaged. Keep calm silence unless absolutely necessary. His pilot, Lieutenant Kyle Bishop, guided the alien vessel with careful precision. Course set for the Vargoth fleet position. ETA 14 hours. Meanwhile, on the Vargoth command ship, Drekthar faced the most difficult conversation of his long career. On the screen before him was Matriarch Salat, supreme leader of the Vargoth Dominion. Her scales were pale with age, but her eyes burned with the same predatory intensity as her younger kin. "Explain again," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "How your assault force was repelled by creatures with no natural defenses." Drekthar struggled to find words that wouldn't sound like excuses. "The humans fight differently, Matriarch. They do not follow predictable patterns. They use their environment and their technology in ways we have not encountered before." "You mean they think?" Salat replied, her tone making it clear this was not a compliment to the humans, but a criticism of Drekthar. "They adapt, while you rely on strength alone. Our reinforcements will arrive soon," Drekthar assured her. "We will crush them with overwhelming force." Salat leaned closer to the screen. "See that you do. The Dominion has never failed to subjugate a world. I will not have the first failure recorded during my reign." As the communication ended, Drekthar turned to his advisors. "Prepare a full assault plan. When our reinforcements arrive, we will hit every major population center simultaneously. No more measured approach." Sub-Commander Vasca looked troubled. "The humans have shown they can adapt quickly to our tactics. Perhaps we should study them more before." "We are Vargoth," Drekthar snarled. "We do not study prey. We hunt it to extinction." What Drekthar didn't know was that his prey was already hunting him. Captain Martinez's small fleet had reached the outer solar system and was moving silently between the scattered Vargoth vessels, gathering data and planting small signal repeaters designed by Dr. Wright. "Final repeater placed," Martinez reported, in a whispered communication to Earth. "Beginning Phase 2. The human ships split up, each targeting different sections of the Vargoth fleet. Martinez's vessel approached the fuel depot ships, craft that carried the exotic materials that powered the Vargoth fleet. "Weapons ready," Bishop reported. "Target locked." Martinez took a deep breath. "Fire." The modified human weapons struck the Vargoth fuel ship with pinpoint accuracy. The explosion was beyond anything they had expected, lighting up the darkness of space. "All ships, execute your strikes and retreat as planned," Martinez ordered. Across the Vargoth fleet, confusion erupted. Their sensors showed Vargoth energy signatures attacking Vargoth ships, an impossibility in their hierarchical system. As the human vessels slipped away, Dr. Wright's signal repeaters activated, flooding the Vargoth command network with contradictory orders. Ship turned against ship as confused captains received what appeared to be legitimate commands to fire on their own allies. For the first time in their history, the mighty Vargoth fleet was thrown into chaos not by a superior force, but by a handful of small vessels and a cleverly designed computer virus. Back on Earth, Eric watched the sensor data with amazement. They did it. They actually did it. Admiral Miller nodded, a rare smile crossing her face. Phase 1 of Carter's plan worked. Now let's see if Martinez can make it back with the intelligence we need. As the stolen ships raced back toward Earth, Martinez sent one final message. Mission accomplished, but we've confirmed the worst. Their reinforcements aren't just coming, they're nearly here, and they're bringing something much bigger than we've seen before. The brief celebration in Earth's command center faded. They had won another battle, but the war was far from over. The real test was still to come. Captain Ryan Martinez and his team returned to Earth as heroes, though there was little time for celebration. The data they had gathered painted a grim picture of what was coming. The Vargoth reinforcements included a massive vessel unlike anything seen before, a planet killer according to the translated Vargoth communications. In the main war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, the World Defense Council gathered to hear Martinez's report. The captain stood before the assembled leaders, still in his flight suit, exhaustion evident on his face. The good news is that our strike caused significant damage to their fleet, Martinez explained, pointing to the tactical display. We destroyed 3 of their fuel ships and 2 weapons platforms. More importantly, Dr. Wright's signal disruption worked even better than expected. Admiral Miller nodded. The confusion in their ranks gave us valuable time, but it won't last forever. No, it won't, Martinez agreed. Their command structure is already reorganizing, and their reinforcements are less than a week away. He brought up the sensor readings of the approaching Vargoth armada. At the center was a ship at least 5 times larger than any they had encountered so far. What is that? President Garcia asked, staring at the massive vessel. They call it the World Cleaver, Martinez replied grimly. From what we could decode, it's designed to crack a planet's crust with some kind of gravity weapon. The room fell silent. Earth's defenses, impressive as they were against the first wave of attackers, would mean nothing against a weapon of that magnitude. Options? Miller asked, looking around the table. Colonel Carter stepped forward. We can't match their firepower, but Captain Martinez's mission proved something important. They're vulnerable to our thinking, to our unpredictability. What are you suggesting? Eric Russell asked. A diplomatic mission, Carter said. The words hung in the air, surprising everyone present. Diplomacy? With predators who want to destroy our planet? Someone asked incredulously. Not traditional diplomacy, Carter clarified. A psychological operation. We send an envoy, directly to their matriarch. All eyes turned to Captain Martinez, who nodded slowly. During our mission, we intercepted communications indicating the matriarch herself is aboard the approaching command vessel. She's coming to personally oversee Earth's submission. And you think we can reason with her? Miller asked skeptically. No, Eric said, understanding dawning. We don't reason with her. We show her something she's never seen before, prey that isn't afraid. The plan that took shape over the next 48 hours was audacious, bordering on insane. A small team would take the most intact of the captured Vargoth vessels and approach the incoming fleet under the guise of a scout ship reporting back. Their goal? To board the matriarch's vessel and broadcast a message not just to her, but to the entire Vargoth fleet. Lieutenant Commander Heather Morrison was selected to lead the mission. With a background in both combat and xenobiology, she understood predator psychology better than almost anyone on Earth, except Eric Russell himself. The key is to never show fear, Eric explained during the mission briefing. The Vargoth interpret fear as confirmation that they're dealing with prey. We need to show them that humans are something else entirely. Not prey, not predators, but adapters, Heather said, nodding in understanding. The team trained intensively for 3 days, practicing Vargoth movement patterns and studying their language and customs. The stolen ship was modified to transmit a special signal, one designed not to disable the Vargoth communications this time, but to hijack them. On the day of launch, Admiral Miller addressed the 6-person team. What you're attempting has never been done before. If you succeed, you might save Earth. If you fail, we won't fail, Heather said simply. As their ship left Earth's atmosphere, humanity held its collective breath. Every available defense system was on high alert, but everyone knew that if Heather's mission failed, there would be little hope of stopping the world cleaver. The journey to intercept the Vargoth fleet took 19 hours. Heather spent most of it reviewing everything known about matriarch Salat. The ancient female was over 200 Earth years old and had overseen the conquest of 17 worlds. She was cunning, ruthless, and utterly convinced of Vargoth's superiority. Approaching. Vargoth perimeter, announced their pilot, Lieutenant Trisha Jones. Heather moved to the communication station, transmitting identification codes now. The tense minutes that followed seemed to stretch for hours. Had Dr. Wright correctly decoded the Vargoth recognition signals? Would they be discovered immediately? We're being hailed, Trisha reported. Massive Vargoth face filled their screen. Not the matriarch, but a high-ranking commander. Scout vessel Karath, report your findings, the commander ordered in the Vargoth language. Heather responded using the carefully practiced phrases Dr. Wright had prepared. Human defenses assessed. Requesting direct audience with Fleet Command to deliver critical intelligence. More waiting. Heather forced herself to remain calm, knowing that any sign of anxiety could be detected by the predatory alien's keen senses. Approach. On Vector 639, came the reply finally. You will be escorted. As their small ship moved toward the heart of the Vargoth fleet, they got their first close look at the world cleaver. The massive vessel dwarfed everything around it. Its hull covered in what appeared to be enormous energy emitters pointed downward, designed to focus devastating power on a planet's surface. 2 Vargoth fighters flanked them as they approached, a docking bay on the command ship. The moment of greatest danger was at hand. They would soon come face to face with the Vargoth with no ship to protect them. Remember, Heather told her team, move confidently. Make eye contact. No sudden movements, but never cower or back away. As they disembarked, they were met by a group of armed Vargoth guards. The aliens towered over the humans, their scaled bodies radiating power and threat. The lead guard assessed them with vertical pupilled eyes, clearly confused by their appearance. You are not Vargoth, he stated, weapon raising slightly. We are human envoys, Heather replied calmly, looking directly into the guard's eyes, a challenge no prey species would dare. We have critical information for your matriarch regarding the capabilities of our species. The guard hesitated, thrown off by their behavior. After conferring with his superiors, he reluctantly led them deeper into the massive ship. The corridors were designed for beings much larger than humans, giving everything an oversized, threatening quality. But Heather's team maintained their composure, walking with purpose rather than fear. Finally, they were brought to an enormous chamber. At its center sat matriarch Salat on what could only be described as a throne. Her scales were paler than those of the younger Vargoth, almost silver in places, but her eyes burned with ancient intelligence and predatory instinct. So, she said, her translator converting her hisses and growls into human language. The prey comes willingly into the jaws of the hunter. Heather stepped forward. We are not prey, Matriarch Salat, and that is precisely why we have come. As she spoke, her team activated the hidden transmitters they carried. Across the Vargoth fleet, on every ship and communication device, screens began to show the same image, humans and Vargoth, face to face. The first true communication between the galaxy's oldest predators and its newest hunters had begun, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance. Matriarch Salat's eyes narrowed as she realized what was happening. The humans had somehow hijacked the Vargoth communication network. Every ship in her fleet was now watching this unexpected confrontation. "You dare?" she hissed, rising to her full height. She towered over Heather, her ancient scales gleaming under the chamber's lights. "We dare," Heather replied, her voice steady. "Because that's what humans do. We take risks, we adapt, we survive." Guards moved to surround the human team, weapons ready. With a gesture from the matriarch, they stopped. "Speak then, human, before I decide your species is too dangerous to exist." Heather activated a small device she carried. A holographic display appeared between them, showing footage from the battles on Earth and in space. It showed Vargoth warriors being defeated not by superior strength or firepower, but by human ingenuity and unexpected tactics. "We could have shown you scenes of human power," Heather explained. "Our cities, our weapons, our numbers. But that's not what makes us dangerous to you." The hologram shifted to show human history. Early humans with simple spears hunting animals much larger than themselves. Humans working together to build shelters against predators. Humans creating ever more complex tools. "We evolved differently than the Vargoth," Heather continued. "You became the strongest, the fastest, the most naturally armed species in your environment. You never needed to change because you were already perfect predators." The matriarch watched with calculating eyes. "And your point?" "Humans were never the strongest. We were never the fastest. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. So we became something else. We became adaptable. We became thinkers and builders and cooperators." Behind her, Heather's team maintained perfect calm, following her lead and showing no fear before the galaxy's apex predators. "In the short time since we encountered your kind, we've already learned to use your weapons, your ships, your communication systems. Given more time, there's nothing of yours we couldn't adapt to our use." The matriarch circled Heather slowly, studying her as one might study an unexpected new species. "You speak of your weakness as if it is strength." "It is our strength," Heather replied. "The Vargoth conquered through power. Humans survived through adaptation." She gestured to the hologram, which now showed Dr. Wright's analysis of Vargoth communication patterns. "We found patterns in your language within days. We learned to fly your ships within a week. We reverse-engineered your weapons in less time than you've spent traveling to our world." For the first time, something like doubt flickered in the ancient matriarch's eyes. "And what do you propose, human? Surrender?" "Coexistence," Heather said simply. "Recognition that the galaxy has room for both hunters and adapters." Drekthar, who had been watching silently from the side of the chamber, stepped forward angrily. "Matriarch, this is a trick. The humans cannot match our strength. The World Cleaver will reduce their planet to rubble." "And then what?" Heather asked, turning to face him. "How many ships will you lose in the process? How many warriors? Even if you destroy Earth, how many human ships are already among your fleet carrying our ideas to every corner of your empire?" She turned back to the matriarch. "You've ruled for centuries by understanding what it means to be the perfect predator, but you've never faced a species that thinks differently until now." The matriarch was silent for a long moment. Throughout the Vargoth fleet, thousands of warriors watched and waited. Young officers, curious about these strange humans. Veterans, uncertain about an enemy unlike any they had faced before. "You have courage," the matriarch finally said. "Coming here, standing before me. That is not the action of prey." "No," Heather agreed. "It's the action of equals." The word hung in the air, shocking to Vargoth ears. No species had ever claimed equality with the mighty hunters of the stars. The matriarch moved to her command console and studied the reports from the previous battles, the human victories, the unexpected tactics, the rapid adaptation to Vargoth technology. "If I ordered your world destroyed now, what would happen?" she asked, almost curious. "War," Heather replied simply. "A long war. One that would cost you more than you've ever paid for a conquest. And even if you won, you'd never be sure you'd found all of us. Humans have a concept called guerrilla warfare. The idea that even a weaker force can eventually exhaust a stronger one through persistence and surprise. A concept the Vargoth had never needed to consider in their long history of easy victories. Drekthar snarled. These are the words of prey trying to avoid the inevitable. No, the matriarch said thoughtfully. These are the words of a hunter who uses its mind rather than its claws. She turned her ancient gaze back to Heather. Your species intrigues me, human. You have no natural weapons, yet you have managed what 17 other worlds could not. You have given the Vargoth pause. On Earth, in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, every screen showed the confrontation taking place light years away. Admiral Miller, Commander Russell, and the others watched in tense silence as Heather Morrison stood her ground before the most feared predator in the galaxy. She's doing it, Eric whispered. She's making them think. The matriarch's next. Words confirmed his assessment. I propose a test, she announced. A period of observation. The Vargoth will withdraw to the edge of your solar system. We will watch, we will learn, and then we will decide if humans are prey, predators, or something new entirely. Heather nodded. And the world cleaver? The matriarch made a gesture that the translators interpreted as something between amusement and respect. It stays with my fleet. Trust, like coexistence, must be earned. As the human team prepared to return to their ship, the matriarch addressed Heather one last time. Tell your leaders this, human. In all our history, we have never negotiated. We have never compromised. We have only conquered. Your Earth has earned something no world ever has: time. When Heather's team returned to Earth, they were greeted, not with parades, but with cautious relief. The Vargoth fleet had indeed withdrawn to the edge of the solar system, the world cleaver positioned where it could still reach Earth if the matriarch gave the order. In the weeks that followed, an uneasy peace settled over both species. Carefully coordinated exchanges began. Limited technology, cultural information, historical records. The Vargoth studied humans with the intensity of scientists examining a new and potentially dangerous species. Humans studied the Vargoth with the curiosity that had carried them from caves to the stars. 6 months after the confrontation on the matriarch's vessel, a formal treaty was signed. Not an alliance, the Vargoth did not ally with other species, but a recognition of boundaries and mutual respect. As Eric Russell watched the signing ceremony from the United Nations building in New York, Admiral Miller joined him by the window. Do you think it will last? She asked. Eric watched as the Vargoth representatives towered over the human diplomats, still looking like the perfect predators they were. I think it has to. They've realized that being the strongest isn't always enough, and we've learned that sometimes standing your ground is more effective than showing force. A new balance in the galaxy, Miller mused. A new understanding, Eric corrected. The Vargoth are still predators, we're still adapters, but now we both know there's room for different kinds of strength among the stars. As night fell over Earth, citizens looked up at the sky with mixed emotions. Fear still lingered. The Vargoth remained dangerous and not entirely trusted. But there was pride too, and wonder. Humanity had faced the galaxy's greatest hunters, and earned their respect not through superior force, but through the same qualities that had carried them from the African savanna to the stars: adaptability, innovation, and the courage to stand together against threats greater than any individual could face alone. The galaxy had changed. The predators had met a species that refused to be prey, and both would never be quite the same again.